Please stand for presentation of colors by CAL FIRE Local 2881 Honor Guard.
All uniform personnel, attention! Present arms! All uniform personnel, order, up! Ready, please. Hold. Come on.
You may be seated. On behalf of the Hayden family, I would like to thank you for attending today. I know your presence means a lot to the family and will bring comfort during this time of remembering Bob's life. We gather today to share in the memories that are instilled in our hearts and to reflect upon a life well lived, the life of Robert James Hayden. Bob entered this world on March 12, 1950, entered into eternity on April 10, 2021. Bob was preceded in death by his father, Robert Hayden, and his mother, Mary Hayden. Bob leaves a legacy in the following: daughter, Heather Hayden of San Jacinto; granddaughters, Remedy and Harmony Roberts of Kingman, Arizona; son, Matthew; wife, Jordan; and grandson, Anson of Kingman, Arizona; brothers, William, Bill Hayden, and Johnny Chung of Oxnard, California; brother, Richard; wife, Cheryl of Arroyo Grande, California; nieces, Jennifer Hayden of Arroyo Grande; Caitlin Hayden of Fort Worth, Texas; Jennifer Daniel Creche; husband, Chris of Redlands, California; nephew, Gregory Hayden of Stillwater, Oklahoma; his many aunts and uncles, and his fire department family, CAL FIRE and CDF. Today's reading of scripture will be from the 23rd Psalm. And this Psalm of David fills our heart with peace. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me by still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord my whole life long. Will you bow your heads with me? Father, we pray that you would be with the family today. Give them ears to hear and a heart to receive the stories that we have come to share about the legacy that Bob leaves behind. It is our hope and prayer all that is said and done today will be for your honor and your glory. In Jesus' name, amen. Heather?
Okay, I'd like to thank everyone for coming today to celebrate my dad's life. I left my notes in the car, so I'm just gonna talk. But my dad was definitely a unique character. He was usually either loved or hated by most. Mainly admin hated him, but you know, he was definitely a firefighter's firefighter. Like for his guys, he would die or do anything. You know, he loved his career. I personally think it might have ruined him in certain ways because he thought I was argumentative when we had conversations. But, you know, to me, it was just a conversation, you know? And we had our differences at times, but I know that no matter what, my dad was always there for me, as he was for most people that he considered special to him. And, like, there's no other person that could replace him ever. He's never gonna die. His memory is always gonna live on in the people whose lives he's touched, you know? And mine included. He sacrificed a lot for our family. He like showed me what it was to be a friend to people. He had great leadership skills. He was a clown, you know? He made everyone laugh. He was real rugged when it came to things like this. He probably would have been trying to take off to go get Mexican food or something, you know, right now. But he was definitely a special guy, unique character. And, you know, it's always going to be remembered by everyone whose lives he's part of. I guess that's it. Thank you guys for coming out. Next.
Bob was a one-of-a-kind type of guy. He was passionate about the things he believed in. He had a desire to help out others and a love for his family, friends, and the CDF family. He was born and raised a Catholic, as was I and my younger brother. We always did things as family growing up together. I believe Bob's dedication to helping others stemmed from his upbringing. Our father was a World War II vet. In fact, he was a disabled veteran, and so Bob, like my younger brother and I, grew up in a household with a father that, while being disabled, he never let his disability define him. But his disability, in a sense, did have an impact on all three of us. And I believe our dad's disability, in a way, created in Bob a desire and passion to want to help out others less fortunate than himself. His career path in helping out others didn't initially begin with the career of the fire industry. Instead, he had a laundry list of service-related jobs before he found his true calling. When he was younger, he found himself picking lemons for a local packing house, working in the dry cleaners, and helping out customers and delivering laundry. He worked at a local lumber yard. He found himself being a short order cook at a local drive-thru restaurant. He was a door-to-door salesman for Cutco knives. He drove an armored truck as well as a food catering truck. He even ended up working in a local mortuary. When he turned 18, also like my brother and I, he joined the Knights of Columbus Council 750. After attending college, he enlisted in the Air Force and was stationed at Lackland Air Force Base in Texas, Anderson Air Force Base in Guam, and then finally here at March Air Force Base. In the service, he specialized in dental implants, which he told all of us he hated. After that, he left the military. He got involved in firefighting, and that is where he found his true love and passion. Bob started off his fire career in Oxnard, briefly at a military base, and then moved down to Riverside County and joined CDF. I remember asking him, why would you ever want to move from the cool coast of Oxnard down to a hot and dry area? And then on top of that, fighting fires, such hot conditions, and having to wear those heavy turnouts and all. And he told me, you know me, I like everything hot. I like my work hot, my showers hot, my women hot, and even my food hot. And I've got to tell you, when it comes to food and Bob, the hotter, the spicier, and the more garlic, the better. The guy would actually sweat while he was enjoying his hot, spicy food. And as many of you know my brother, he would actually carry around a bottle of garlic pepper with him everywhere he went and just piled it on his food. He loved making and eating tacos. Then there was a famous Hayden garlic bread, which our dad taught all three of us boys the secret to making it. And it was to die for. Literally, it was drenched in soap and so much butter, tons of garlic, and cheese. And for nearly 20 years, Bob would not only look forward to coming up to Johnny and my annual 4th of July barbecue and help us cook the meat and our famous garlic bread, but he loved doing the same at his friends' homes and his co-workers' barbecues as well. Bob was kind, loving, thoughtful, very funny, and supportive. He didn't care about your race, your age, your religious belief, your ethnic background, or your sexual orientation. He liked and loved you for who you were. He would talk to anyone, like myself, that we inherited from our mom. Bob and I were extremely close. I always looked up to him growing up and throughout my adulthood. He was a hero to me and to many. And he had a big heart and would help anybody he could. He was a true fireman's fireman. He gave his heart and soul to that passion that he loved so dearly. Bob may have not gone to church often, but he did have a strong sense of faith and prayer. All three of us boys were given patron saint medals and chains to wear from our parents. Bob would always wear the medal of St. Florian, the patron saint of firefighters, once he started with CDF. He would always lose those medals through the years fighting fires, but never the chain, and I would always replace those medals for him. I know that Bob knew the firefighter's prayer, and there is a verse in it I think epitomizes Bob the best. It reads, I want to fill my calling to give the best in me, to guard my friends and neighbor, and to protect their property. Bob was a protector, a fighter. He was old school, and he always stood for what he believed in. He was a mentor to many, a good man, friend, brother, son, father, cousin, godfather, and a loving grandfather. be remiss if I didn't personally thank his niece, Jennifer Daniel Tracy, his best friends, Leonard and Linda Grill, and Rudy and Terry Saldona. But I also have a special thanks for Jeff Pearl, Roger Cox, Jim Cook, John Hunter, and his many CDF family and friends that have shown him love and support over the years until his passing. You are all a blessing to me. In closing, I will end this as my brother ended every phone call with me. I miss and I love you.
Good afternoon. I'm Bill Weiser. I'm the California Secretary. I first met Bob in the summer of 1990. I was going to fire captain in Temecula, and Bob was a salty fire captain at Ellsworth Station. I was lucky to work the same ship with Bob, Sunday morning Tuesday. Did that together for 2 years. This meant we both were the same strike teams, fought we did the same fires in Riverside County together. Bob of 3173, and trusty Bob. Bob became fire apparatus engineer at Riverside on May 16, 1977. He was assigned to Harrisontown. August 1st of 1982, Bob promoted fire captain and was assigned to Ellsworth, where he stayed assigned until his retirement November 1st of 2010. Bob did some winter assignments all throughout the rest of the county, but his home and love was Ellsworth Station 2. My first memory of Bob is on a fire off the Sage Road in Drake. The fire was to the west of the road and was moving towards it. I had an angel on the road. I really wasn't too sure what to do. Out of the smoke on the right flank, I saw 3173 driving fairly fast on what I would guess would be considered a jet track, going downhill, laying fire out the passenger side window and hitting the flares off the back. Bob was his own. He tied the fire into Sage Road and started heading south. All I could do was to tuck in behind him and try to hold what he was doing. Bob taught me, like so many of you who fight fire, to get in the hunt. In 1995, Bob and I were on Strike Team 93 Team Charlie in San Diego on the Sycamore fire. 3173 was behind my engine when the fire finally went through. Bob and I had talked about fire behavior and that this assignment seemed all wrong. We promised to stick together. We got separated through the chaos, but Bob kept in contact with me on the radio. And I knew that if Bob was all right, I would be too. Bob had a great sense of humor. His mouth was infectious. And when he was joshing you or giving you the business, his eyes would sparkle and he had that little smirk. 3173 with Bob covered Temecula one day. I don't know what year it was. They left on purpose before our units returned. They had heard us coming home. When we walked into the kitchen, all of our canned goods had their labels taken off and they were all stacked in a big pyramid in the kitchen. We ate unknown stuff for weeks. Bob called me when we got in quarters, after he got in quarters, and just laughed at me. Another time, Bob and I were assigned to a strike team when we were up in Shasta. We were at Shasta staging. And all of our badges were stolen off our shirts and boots. I was pissed, but Bob was hurt. And that was Bob too. His tears were real. He wasn't ashamed of it. I hope today we can learn how Bob got that flat badge, that's on his shirt right there. And you all know the pride that Bob had on his flat badge. I don't actually know the story of that, but I hope to hear it sometime today. I think that Bob's biggest legacy in the fire department will be his compassion and caring for others. As I look out at all of you that have come to pay tribute and respect, I believe this is the man, a fire captain that truly cared about his crew, that made the impact of everyone who got to know him, that will always be remembered. Bob was a man that taught, shared, and loved.
It's an honor to be here to talk about Pastor Morgan. Thank you, family, to let me speak. Paul was my first captain station when I got there at Station 10. And it was a scheduling program just started with senior Tony Alcott. And thank you. And Bob told Tony and Dan, say, come on to spot because Kansas City got him this position. So I came from Allentown and had Al Walker, Bill Mason, Kansas City, and Chief Tom Collins too. All the captain passed away from my time. Close captains that brought me the way I am today. I've always one. And all the captains at that time, back in the 80s, in the early 80s. I started 86 as Elsinore, and I started in 85 at Hamilton. Great. Family men. Respect your parents, respect your father, mother, listen to them, obey them. He's that type of person. If you have a problem, well, we listen. For a lot of people, he was an uncle, a deal, a brother, a second dad. And that's what captains were back then. Not now, because they're only 22 years old and they're captains. Years ago, there were captains, there were fathers. Mostly all the firemen they know back then, there were kids. They were like in our 20s. So we learned a lot. It taught us a lot. There's something that you don't tell your dad, there's something you can. And that's like mostly relationship, you know. So a lot of kids, we get back at the fire at the camp, and we just like go our guts out. Mom talks, tell him. And after he finished, he laughed. He say, "I'm not saying follow me, but you know, that's what I did. Maybe you could do something better." But law of the department at that time, there was a strong family. And I remember Ken Sibby, when I first started, he stated, I want a hard work day. Give me a hard work day. Take care of your family. And I'm like, okay, take care of my family at home. And after that, he looked at me, he said, I want you to take care of this, your family. This is your family here. We're family in this department. And he didn't say department, he said forestry. And he, the third one was never rat on anybody. And I'm like, okay. And then he finished his cigarette, put it between his pants in the bottom, and then he walked away. And then I work a hard day work. And like all these saying, like people say about moving rocks from one side to the other side, it's effing true. It's true. But you know, we learned what hard work is. And so when I went to Elsinore, the only thing Sigby told me was, hey man, I just mentioned a name, your name. You have to build your name. I'm not gonna open the door, I'm not gonna give you a bell, you have to make your name. So I went to Elsinore, first thing, they just got me, spy. So I worked with Bob, I worked the first Schedule A program there with Senior Alicon that just passed away too, a couple months ago. And so I worked with Dave Park when he was there. I worked with Terry when he was there. And then Bob. And after I went to the Schedule B, because Dan Shaw said, hey, you need to get off that Schedule A engine and go on the B side. You need to work. So I did. And it's work. Schedule B is work. And if there's a name for it, and there is a name for it, but it's not preached as much right now, it's called a salty effer. That's what you call these guys. These Schedule B guys, they're salty. If you work Schedule B and you earn your rank as a captain, not a firefighter just grunts. I'm a grunt. But these captains, when they're Schedule B and they retire as a captain, you're salty. You're salty. When you're a chief, yeah, you're just a paper pusher and a mailman. You know? So, I love, when you look at him, that's a salty captain. That's a respect captain. Respect. And I got a lot of captains that is going. They're earning their rings now and they're leaving. But Jesus, man, he's gonna have some salty efforts up there. You know, especially Pat Walker. Oh my Lord. But I could keep on talking. They told me, you only got 3 minutes. And they told me that because they know I love to talk. So I'm going to end this. Thank you so much. Love you, Bob.
And Steve does like to talk. And he was limited to 3 minutes, 2 or 3 times. But you see, even an old salt captain can't get that information across. Paul?
I think this is going to be one of the hardest things I've done. Might have to be like at the Oscars and start playing the music because I might go a little long as well. I had to write some stuff down because it's going to be pretty hard to get through this. Bob was an amazing individual, as you've heard speaking here. It's interesting how life takes us down different roads and takes us to different destinations, and sometimes we wonder why and how. And one of those destinations is we're all here today because we all shared at some point in time a piece of Bob's path with him. When Leonard Grill first asked me if I would speak, I was taken back, honored, and privileged. And then a smile came to my face, and I said, oh, I have a lot of stories we can share with Bob. And then Leonard looked at me and said, stories that you can tell. I said, okay, that slowed me down a little bit. But I first met Bob in May of 1983. I was a brand new PCF firefighter at the Calco station, just up the road, not too far from here. And he had worked there as an engineer on and off. I think it was relief. But he had left prior to my arrival, but he had come back and visit. And I became friends with Bob pretty much through Leonard. And yes, I do realize that was 38 years ago. And a lot of things have happened in those 38 years. But what has been said about Bob, I don't think I can expound any more than what was already said. He was one of the most giving individuals that would virtually do anything there is to do to help you. As a firefighter, he wanted his firefighters to be the best that they could be. I had the privilege and honor of working with Steve Caban at Elsinore with Bob in the late 80s. I couldn't tell you the number of times that Steve Caban and I were assigned to 7-3 with Bob. It seemed like almost every day we were on shift together. Steve and I were on 7-3 with Bob. And then in the early 90s, both Caban and I worked for then Fire Captain Bill Weiser. So again, our paths keep touching. But Bob loved a lot of things in his life, and he had passion for life in general. He loved riding his Harley-Davidson motorcycle. He loved riding it with his friends, Michael Bratton, A.C. Avila. They would just go and ride, and he loved it. He loved it so much so that when his son Matthew was young, he got a wooden motorcycle for his little son to scoot around on. And Bob was very, very proud of that and loved showing people that. We became pretty good friends. At first, I wasn't going to make a career with CDF, and I was just doing my PCF thing with Riverside County Fire Department. And then I ended up saying, you know, Bob, I'm going to come to work for CDF and apply. And then I ended up working for Bob. Not sure how that happened. And I'd already been an engineer with the County Fire Department for 5 years. So I'd seen it and done it. If you'd asked me, I'd have told you. So when I started work with Bob, I was kind of like in the fantasy world of it's just going to be the same old as the little old slow station 4 that gets one call a day. When I first went to work, I went to work for CDF on June 6th, 1988. Go to Paris, do personnel stuff, get your gear, get your station assignment, you go to the station. And I go there. But I get there just before lunch. And I walk in, there's Steve Caban and Glenn Callison, hurriedly finishing up setting the table for all the firefighters to come and eat. So I get to sit down and have lunch. And I'm like, oh, this is just like, you know, going to Boy Scout camp. This is great. We have lunch. After lunch, I'm putting the finest little touches on my gear, getting the gear on the engine. I was assigned 3173 for the day with Bob. I was on the back, being the new guy. That was the old Model 1. You actually had to climb the back, put your seatbelt on, and put a little chink across the back so you don't fall out. he's looking in the mirror, watching me put my pants on, and then I'm putting on my jacket, and I'm getting into that, and you just get, God damn it, what's going on? And you just hear it right through the mirror. So I get in there, I get strapped in, lock the chain in, reach down between my legs to the buzzer, to signal Bob, I'm ready, and I push that buzzer twice. And the sound waves of that second buzzer was still hanging in the air, but we were about 4 blocks down Grand Avenue. And I was just flopping around like the back of a rag doll in the back of the engine, just going, holy crap. And we can see the header, and he is just moving. And Dave Avila was behind us at 3183. Tony Alarcon was behind him in engine 10. And Ron Polk was behind him in engine 10A. It's just all 4 of us were just boom. And every time I would look behind us, the distance between 8.3 to 7.3 was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I was like, holy crud. I mean, Bob didn't go speed limit. There wasn't slowing him down. Come to find out later, his thing was he was going to be into 11 there. There was no way 11 was going to be before him. And you can see the header, you can see the fire. This is a legit fire. And we get there and I'm all pumped and ready to go. I've been a PCF for 5 years and I'm good to go. Seen it and done it. So we get there and the vegetation was burning through the campground area towards Highway 74. And Glenn Callison already had game plan given to him by Bob when we get there. So we jump up and says, I want you guys to get a whole thing going in here. Do not let it get into the trees. So of course what happened? It got into the trees. And that was the beginning of my humble pie serving, if you would. When it got up in those eucalyptus trees, and we had this entire camp area that was probably about 5 or 6 times as big as this room here, just ignited, the whole camp. It was something that I had never seen before. In those 5 years that I had done stuff, I just realized that I hadn't done squat. And Glenn Callison was on the nozzle, and he was doing the best he can to, big fog to keep the embers off us. And I'm just standing there, motionless, like I'm just frozen. Next thing I know is I feel this hand behind me. Get in there! And he's pushing me into this fire. I'm going, holy crap! And it kind of looked like a slap in the face, got me going a little bit. And so we went in there, did our business, and then that night, we were pulling the hose off the engine, put it on the hose rack. And Bob comes up to me and says, I'm sorry about kicking you back like that. That made me feel good. I says, thanks, Bob. And he goes, but it looked like you crapped your pants and I didn't want to kick you in the butt because you get it on my boots. So he kind of squished that one a little bit. And Chief Weiser made the comment about how fast 7.3 goes on the fire lines. I'll tell you what, if you're mobile pumping with Bob, you better be in good physical shape because you got your gear on and you are running with that bumper line. That's just, Bob was, it's a very, inherently firefighting is a dangerous job. And you look at Bob and he's always happy. He's always, his brother made the point that he was joking and clowning all the time. And so you think that's pretty much the whole of his persona, and it's not. It didn't take long to realize that Bob is a very clinical technician with fire. I mean, he knows wildland fire behavior exceptionally well. And just listening to him mumble to himself, okay, you start picking up pieces of what he's saying, and I learned a lot from him. And family means everything to Bob, as his family mentioned, but the fire service as a whole, we have a unique bond. We have over 300 years of tradition. Back in the day, firefighters worked 5 days, and then they worked 4 days, and now they work 3 days. But you spend a lot of time together. You get to know people. You go on long fire assignments and go to Shafta and Mariposa staging, and I'm not sure what's worse. you're in very critical situations where your safety depends on your coworker and their safety depends on yours. So there's a special bond within the fire service. And so when people say my fire family, there's a legitimate family there. And like all families, there's spats. You know, you might not like this captain and they did this and that. But as a whole, the fire service is a family. CAL FIRE is not the only state agency I've worked for, and I've worked for private industry as well. And I know there's these business management practices where you got to make the rank and file feel warm and fuzzy and say, oh, we're a family. Well, I don't know what dysfunctional, toxic family they came from, but I want nothing to do with that. But CAL FIRE is a family. And Bob was the father figure, like Steve commented on. And he would meet people and say, hey, mijo, how are you doing? As if he's a father asking his child, how are you doing? That was not a gratuitous salutation. Bob legitimately wanted to know how you were doing. Numerous firefighters endured numerous personal issues in their life, and Bob was there. Bob was counseling them and helping them in any way they could. He wanted you to progress as a firefighter. He wanted you to progress as an individual. And that son is Icky. And so that's just how Bob was. He was a giving, loving, kind person. I'm indebted to his family for sharing him with me. He was one of my best friends. I've known him pretty good for 38 years. I can't tell you how many campfires we sat around, talking, getting into trouble together. In 1996, 2 strike teams from Riverside were sent to Malibu. I was working for Tim Chavez at the time, captain at 25. And Marvies was my strike team leader. And then there was a strike team that was led by Chief Brenda Siebert. And we've been out there for days and days and days. And finally we get a hotel. And Bob and I were sharing a hotel. And we were going to go for a walk because we just wanted to go for a walk and probably get in trouble. So we shower, we get dressed, and we're getting ready to leave the hotel room to go. And I am literally reaching for the doorknob. And there's a knock on the other side of that door. And I'm like, oh, great. Someone's going to get tagged along and it's going to ruin our fun. And I open the door, and there stands Chief Brenda Siebert. I'm like, crap, we haven't even left the room and we're in trouble. And Brenda was there to tell me that my previous wife was in labor with our son, which was 6 weeks premature. And Bob immediately got with Chief Siebert and says, "We got to get him relief now." And the dude worked it out. They got a firefighter to replace me, and then we were already down, so I took Brenda Siebert's BC vehicle and drove back to Riverside. And met my replacement at the hospital, and he took the BC vehicle back and replaced me on the fire. And I don't know if that would have happened had Bob not been so persistent with Brenda that this has to happen. This is the right thing to do for our family. So I'm grateful for that. I was still late. My son was about 6 hours old when I got there, but better than 6 days. You would be the butt of jokes from him, but they were never mean, they were never malicious. Bob never tore you down to make himself look better. If there was something he needed to talk to you about, it was done in private, and then that was it. Whether it is you screwed up and need to do better, or there's a disciplinary problem and we need to take care of this and you don't do this anymore, didn't matter what the issue was, and that was it. Bob would never bring it up again. It was always fun to work with Bob. He always made the mundane hours, whether it be at the station, 7:30 at night, and it's 110 outside still, and you're hoping that we don't get toned out to a fire. Or if you're sitting in staging after being on an assignment for 10 days and you're wondering if are you going to get sent back to the Ranger unit or are you going to get another fire for another 10 days. But the fact that you're here shows that there's a piece of Bob in all of you. Bob left a legacy of generation after generation of upcoming firefighters, that this is the positive, ethical fire management that produces productive crews and the camaraderie. And those firefighters in turn climbed the ladder and they became company officers and chief officers. And now they themselves in turn are mentoring their subordinates as Bob did. And there's a piece of Bob in those new firefighters, and those new firefighters don't even know who Bob is. But Bob is in those people. One of the things that Bob and I shared, in fact, he was kind of the catalyst for it, was we shared a passion for Smokey Bear. Tim's nodding his head back there. We would get out of county assignments, and we would be up north, and we would be in some of the most remotest, godforsaken places one can conceive of. Hat Creek, White Horse, Beaver, Bog Mountain, Kelsey Cobb, that runs on a generator, gravity feed diesel fuel for your engine. And Bob knew, he says, these stations have treasures. And when we would cover these stations, we would be in the attics, we would be in the storage sheds, searching for old Smokey Bear posters. Jim Chavez knows he's living it. He just, if there was smoking, he sniffed out Bob and find it. And that's a piece that I share in my life to this day. I have a very stringent passion for the environment. Smokey Bear is a big part of that, my fire career as well. When I look at my smoking collection, I think, wow, Bob was the catalyst that got me going on that. When I think about how to work with people and interact with people in a better way, especially when emotions run high, there's a piece of Bob in me that slows me down. It says you can do better, you can become better. And that's the legacy that Bob has given us. Else we wouldn't be here on our team today. In closing, I want to revisit his dedication to family that I mentioned, his fire family. We are a family. In the last 38 years, I can't tell you how many times I've sat across the table from Bob with a beer. Predominantly with Leonard. And I want Matthew and Heather to know you were the world to him. Bob always talked about you guys from when you were small. When you were very, very small, you guys had a little jungle gym swing set in the backyard. Leonard and I went over there and helped dig the holes for that. And let me tell you what, digging that self-composing granite in Merino Valley was not fun. How do you know Bob thinks you're family? He comes and he helps you move. Bob helped me move twice. But Matthew and Heather and his two girls that you blessed him with, Bob endlessly spoke of you. And I want you just to know that. His family, he spoke of his father, he spoke of his brothers all the time. I can't think of anyone who spoke of their siblings, their parents, their children, their grandchildren as affectionately as Bob did. And like all families, sometimes things get muddied and the waters get dirty and you really can't see clearly what's going on or why. But I want you and Matthew to know he loved you and would do everything in his power for you. And that's all I want to say about Bob right now. I'm like a bumbling idiot in front of you. But I'm grateful for the very close friends I have in the fire service. Some of them I haven't seen for many, many years, and it's just amazing to see some of them. I hope to talk to some of you before we leave this evening. And I love Bob with all my heart. He has been an amazing individual in my life, one that you wouldn't have expected. This Harley Davidson riding, long-haired, wearing, nonconformist guy. I just loved him to death. Thank you for coming here and sharing this evening with us. And again, to his family, thank you for sharing Bob with me.
Bob's a good friend of mine. I met him 44 years ago. He was just starting his fire service career with Cal Fires. I was just starting mine as a volunteer at Station 4. I was going to talk to you about the side of Bob that most people don't get to see. His generosity, his sincerity, his love of family. But that's all been covered, so I really don't have anything else to say. So I think his lasting legacy is that he was truly a family man. He'd do anything for his family. Up to his last days, that was primary importance, was to take care of his grandkids. And unfortunately, he didn't get to see some of the work he started, but he left a legacy for him, and I'm grateful that he was able to do that, that I could help him. Thanks for all coming. And
There's a lady who's sure all that glitters is gold, and she's buying the stairway to heaven. When she gets there, she knows if the stores are all closed, with a word she can get what she came for. She's buying a stairway to heaven. There's a sign on the wall, but she wants to be sure, 'cause you know sometimes words have two meanings. In a tree by the brook, there's a songbird who sings. Sometimes all of our thoughts trees and the voices of those who stand looking. Ooh, it makes me wonder. Really makes me wonder. And it's whispered that soon, if we all call the tune, then the piper will lead us to reason, and a new day will dawn for those who stand long, and the forests will echo with laughter. If there's a bustle in your hedgerow, don't be alone there. It's just a sprinkling for the May Queen. Yes, there are two paths you can go by, but in the long run, and there's still time to change the road you're on. And it makes me wonder. Your head is humming and it won't go. In case you don't know, the piper's calling you to join him. Dear lady, can you hear the wind blow? And did you know your stairway lies on the whispering wind? to
Order. Up. Inappropriate command. Dismiss.
When I got the news today, I didn't know what to say, so I just hung up the phone. I took a walk to clear my head, and this is where the walk-in led. Can't believe you're really gone. Don't feel like going home, so I'm gonna sit right here on the edge of this pier and watch the sunset disappear. And drink a beer. Funny how the good ones go too soon, but the good Lord knows the reasons why, I guess. Sometimes a greater plan is kinda hard to understand. Right now it don't make sense. I can't make it all make sense, so I'm gonna sit right here on the edge of this pier and watch the sunset disappear. And drink a beer. So long, my friend, until we meet again. I'll remember you and all the times that we used to sit right here on the edge of this pier and watch the sunset disappear. And drink a beer. Drink a beer. Drink a beer.
Liquor grill will now be fire starter followed by fire department
W. Lynn, Wichita Fire Department, 1947 and 1975. This was originally written as a poem one evening when firefighter Lynn returned from the fire, where 3 children had perished. His company tried to effect a rescue but failed due to bars on the window. Extremely distraught, firefighter Lynn sat down and wrote this poem to God, asking for help in grasping this situation. It became known as Fireman's Prayer. When I'm called to duty, God, whenever flames may rage, give me the strength to save some life, whatever be its age. Help me to embrace a little child before it's too late, or some older person from the horror of that fate. Enable me to be alert and hear the weakest shout, and quickly and efficiently to put the fire out. I want to fill my calling and give the best in me, to guard my neighbor and protect his property. And if according to your will I have to lose my life, please bless with your protecting hand my children and my wife. Amen.
The last alarm. When one of our own passes, we consider it an honor to be present, to celebrate their life. Celebrate, for there is no more joyous a life than that of a fireman who puts his heart into his work. To thank you, his family, for sharing him with us. To thank him for carrying on and expanding the tradition of the fire service. To thank him for providing the blanket of safety under which we grew up. And so we offer him one final tradition of the fire service. His last alarm as told by the bell. For it was the bell, when the fire service was young, that signaled the alarm when fire threatened lives and homes. And when the firemen had subdued the threat, it was again the bell that heralded the return to safety. When a fireman died fighting a blaze, it was the mournful toll of the bell with which we laid him to rest. And so, for a lifetime of service, on behalf of a grateful fire community, we toll the bell 3 rings, 3 times each, for our brother, Bob Hayden. His last alarm, his duties well done. He is going home.
favorite menu, tacos, which he would